for joining us this afternoon. Hope everyone's having a lovely conference so far. We're going to be discussing how to reimagine the admissions process using technology without losing the personal touch. We're going to discuss with the panellists, and then if we've got time, we'll come to everybody for questions. Firstly, to introduce you to our very knowledgeable and experienced panel, we've got Kris Morling, CEO and co-founder of Studee, formerly of money.co.uk. Kris is one of the UK's leading entrepreneurs and has been known as Britain's best boss, which he loves me mentioning. Anna has kindly stepped in. She's a university partnership specialist at Studee, and she flew over from Ecuador yesterday because Chris Nedder was unfortunately unable to join us. Anna has over 10 years of experience working with students in universities. Bobby Mehta, Associate Pro Vice Chancellor of Global Engagement from Portsmouth University, chair of WULA, and also one of the Pi's top 50 voices has kindly joined us, as well as Kris Achten, who's come over from Belgium, from KDG University of Applied Sciences, where he's helped to double their international student intake every year for the last 4 years by use of clever technology. Now, this is a big subject. We have a very short amount of time, so let's crack on. So Kris, over to you. What does it mean to leverage technology? What are the benefits, and why should you be so interested?
Okay. Afternoon, everybody. Okay, big subject. The starting point really has to be about not what technology do I have available, what can I use, but how is it going to improve the service that you offer for your students, and how does it improve your processes internally? So that's always got to be at the back of the mind. So obviously in our arsenal we've got chatbots, CRM, communication, automated communication tools, etc. But the trick is trying to work out what is going to be relevant in what situation. So just to pick off a few, let's start on communication. Communication, we can probably all agree, can be improved both to our students and internally. When we're communicating with students, what we wanted to avoid at Studee was effectively wasting time giving the students a communication that was just as good, if not better, if it was automated. So it's not about cutting corners, and it's not about just trying to save time for the sake of it. It's about improving the service. So if you think about simple situations, for example, when you want to give a reminder that a deadline is looming, the last thing you want is for you or your team to have to remember that, have a calendar reminder. You just want that to be automated. And so that's the sort of thing I'm talking about. Now, we've kind of taken it to the next level. One of our emails that's automated is super highly personalized. It has 20 different conditions in it, so that email is very, very home for that individual student. So personalization is another really, really key area. As soon as a student applies or shows an interest in a subject matter or university, it's not good enough now just to go out with a generic, here's what we offer message. You've got to try and find out what they're interested in so that you can provide information that's really, really tailored for exactly what they're after. We spoke about it earlier this morning in another discussion, but for me it's very much an exchange of value. So in order to get more information from the student so that you can give them a personalised service both on the website and in emails or other comms, they've got to get something in return. It's only fair. So if you can think of tools and a way of giving them value, then they'll give you something in return, which is information about them, which improves the service overall. We're also talking about improving inefficiencies. Obviously, if you're able to automate, then that gives you more time to focus on the things that are more important. Perhaps those personal one-on-one conversations where an automated tool simply won't cut the mustard. And of course, it gives you scalability. And what I mean by scalability is still providing a really first-class service, but to more students. So this is the thing I always have in the back of my mind. It's not about automating just to save money and cut corners. It's automating so that you can provide a better service to more students.
Which leads me on perfectly to my next question. So how can technology be used to improve the admission process for students?
Yeah, so
Anna?
I can take it. So out of 10 years that you mentioned, Hannah, the majority of those I spent it working with the students on a daily basis, and so understanding their inquiries. And so what automation does from the initial point is pretty much help us in a quicker way understand the insights and the pain points of a student. So in that way, we can then have a solution approach, oriented solution approach, so we could attack that in a better way. And so that's one portion of it, but also with automation, not just, because at the end of the day, it's not just them enrolling at a university, but also their experience for them to be as smooth as possible. What happened? But yeah, for them to also have a great experience through the overwhelming and daunting process that could be deciding where to go, right? So it's pretty much answering that where to begin. So what automation does is help us focus in more of a quality of service to them, rather than for them to not be able to get the information quickly and accurate. So that's great. And the second one I would say is very important is for the application process itself to be quicker, both for the student, but also for our university partners. And so in that way, we could get faster eligibility criteria, because as you can understand, there's so much data points with universities, so we need to not just be effective with what we're saying, but also accurate in terms of having that quick response and the ever-changing deadlines and requirements and scholarships and so on. So those are the main points where automations kind of have a continued great effect, and moving forward, I see it that way.
Thank you, Anna. Kris, do you want to give some examples of how you've improved the student journey through use of technology?
Sure. We've built automated email flows that are segmented. Emails are sent specifically to students in an automated flow depending on where they're from. Local students, European students, non-European students, they would get a different flow of emails, different emails, and in a different order. We also use semi-automated text snippets with a tool called Text Expander, where I can really quickly answer emails with very detailed information in a very personal way. And students highly appreciate that very personal yet very fast approach. And for us, the benefit in automation and in using this technology is to make sure that students get the right info at the right time. And students will be at different stages in their journey, but you won't necessarily be. So our automated email segments allow us to speed up that email flow the closer we get to the admission deadline. And at the beginning of the session, there will be 1 or 2 weeks between emails, and towards the end, there will be days in between them. We also work with a student ambassador, of course, but only certain students get access to these student ambassadors. So, and same thing for our recruiters. So in this email flow, email number 6 or 7 will include a link to a video chat with the recruiters. But you will only get that email if you have opened the previous 5 ones. So we don't send out video invites to students who will just ask questions, the answers to which will be on our website. And this allows us to dedicate our very limited time. So we're still working with only 4 people part-time, so 1.5 full-time equivalent, for dealing with 2,000 applications last year. But we managed to allocate that limited time to really the right students, the students who have gone through the process of gathering information and having prepared that conversation. So it allows us to use the limited time and energy we have to serve exactly the students we seek to serve.
Thank you. Now let's talk about automation, especially with AI now coming on the scene and being a very real, new feature in all of our lives. Bobby, do you want to talk about when it's appropriate to use automation and technology, and when it's better to use real people?
Yeah, so just judging by the fact there's so many people in this room, it sort of highlights the importance of automation and AI and the use of technology, because I think as you look around universities in the UK, right now we are overwhelmed with the number of applications coming in, number of emails. So we are all on an automation journey. We want to be more personalized, like you said, Kris. We want to give that first-class service. But at the moment, I think most universities would say they're not able to deal with all the applications and all the inquiries that they're getting. And if they are able to deal with them, not in an efficient way. So the role of automation, the role of AI is really, really important. And I think some of the things you guys are doing at Studee is, really at the forefront of that. And I think there's a lot we as a, higher education sector within the UK can learn from the way you've designed all the different points in the journey. It's a lot of things that we still, I think a lot of universities in the UK still need to do. Just looking at the University of Portsmouth, last year we had 67,000 applications. 67,000 applications. It's not possible to deal with that. So, the importance of AI and actually building that in so that they can filter the applications for us, that they can prioritize applications for us, the personalization, the automatic communications, all of that is really, really key going forward. But you don't want to lose that personal interactions, you don't want to lose that engagement with the students. So again, at the University of Portsmouth, what we've done for several years now is we've, as our admissions functions have grown, as we've become more automated and better at dealing with that, we've invested more resources in our conversion activities. So what we do is we have call-out campaigns, WhatsApp campaigns, where we're engaging with the students in a different part of the journey, and sort of after they get the admissions, which is a much more automated process, not much human touch in there, we actually then engage with the students on a personal basis. So what we do is we get a bank of student ambassadors that come in, they are part of our conversion team, and they do call-outs. We work with other providers as well, where there's peer-to-peer platforms where we can engage with students and have that one-to-one connection, and it's a student-to-student connection. And if they've got any questions, if they're not sure, and often, as we know, the volumes of emails that even students are getting, it's so high, so the amount of noise, they don't always respond to those email inquiries. So they may have it, they may not read it. We're dealing with teenagers here usually, or young people. So sometimes that shorter communication from a peer on WhatsApp or on a phone call has much more impact. And it's like, you haven't accepted your offer. If you don't accept, and you get an action as a result of that.
Thank you very much. Kris, let's talk about AI. ChatGPT we've seen come in with a storm, and it's not going to slow down, it's not going to go away. How can we embrace that?
Yeah, big question at the moment, isn't it? The problem with AI, and I'm a big fan of AI, but the problem with ChatGPT specifically is it's a black box. So there is always going to be a risk, especially when the technology is new, depending on how you use it, that the responses could be inappropriate if you're using it purely for chat and for answering questions for students. There are going to be ways to help protect the student, but at the moment it's still a risk. Now, what's really exciting is, as of 6 days ago, OpenAI introduced, it's called Chat GPT plugins. Look it up if you haven't heard about it. It basically, in simple terms, is going to be a way for you to throw information about your institution into OpenAI, into ChatGPT, so that students or whoever you like can interact with ChatGPT and get up-to-date information about your specific service. And that's a game changer, because as we know, ChatGPT, it's only up until, I think, September 2000 and, was it? Yeah, it's 18 months old. So with this approach, you're going to be able to provide very relevant, up-to-date information about your institution, which I think is probably going to be the game changer. But we still need to be aware of the pitfalls. For me, I'm a true believer in jumping on board a new technology as long as you're 95% confident it's going to deliver something of value, and then you monitor it very carefully and you jump on and react to any issues, so that on a one-to-one basis, if there is a problem, you certainly don't ignore it, as I'm sure you wouldn't. You jump on it, you do something about it, and you improve the service. If you wait for everything to be perfect and 100% guaranteed, you're probably never going to launch anything new.
Thank you. And so when we're talking about automation, introducing technology, what are some of the pitfalls that we need to be wary of, and how can we begin to guard against them? Who wants to take this one first?
Yeah, I'll come in from a university perspective, and I'm sure lots of university colleagues in the room, or if you've worked for a university, you'll relate to this. Universities are not very good at bringing in new technologies and implementing it. So that's the first thing. So, you know, when you're talking to a supplier about a new technology, and you know, you get some very good salespeople that sell you lots of great promises, but then when it comes to the implementation, is it actually going to work? Is it going to deliver what you wanted it to? So I'd say that's definitely one of the big pitfalls colleagues in the room who are from the university sector should look out for.
So what do you think can be done about that?
Understand exactly, get your IT people, you know, I'm not an IT expert by any stretch of the imagination, so I would definitely get my IT colleagues in the room and get them to sit down and understand, you know, is it a simple, you know, it's off the shelf and you just plug it in. Is it really that simple? Is the integration there? Will the data flows work? Because when something like that goes wrong, it really does hamper everything. And then a simple project that was off the shelf and quite cost effective then becomes a big problem, which you then end up throwing more and more money at and doesn't deliver the solution that you would hoped it would.
I think just to add to what Bobby said, we need to be very careful on not being generic with automation, because at the end of the day, the industry that we work in, we need to have that personable relationship or rapport with students, either if you're an advisor or a union representative. And so we need to be aware of that. At the end of the day, we all look to maximize our students' opportunity to study abroad, but at the same time, we need to focus on delivering that personability. Is that a word? Yeah. but yeah, at the end of the day, it's not just outcome driven, but also experience driven. So how can we add value in even if it's an email or anything that we can do to their journey?
I would also like to add one or two thoughts to that. When we started 4 years ago, it was just 2 half-time equivalents, and we needed to do everything manually, artisanally. The only technology we had was email, or the only technology we used was email and going to fairs. And now looking back, I'm really grateful that we had that very manual, personal approach, because it allowed us recruiters and the copywriter and the digital marketeers that joined our team afterwards to have a very deep and personal understanding of the type of students we're seeking to serve, the people who we're for and the people who we're not for. And that's the kind of insight or knowledge even that you don't get from just looking at data, just using technology. Now I'm very confident that the 14 student ambassadors that we recruited 2 years ago, I can blindly trust them that they will advise students looking to join us now about the same things that we recruited them about, right? So now we're at a stage where we can confidently trust some part of the process to technology and scale it through that. But I would be very wary of technology blindness, just automation for the sake of it, when you're not serving students, when you're not using it to deepen your relationship with the student and really create energy and space for you to really interact with the student, then I would be wary.
Thank you. So where do you begin if you're a university looking to reimagine your admissions process? Who wants to kick off?
Yeah, I think where you begin is you start looking at your process, you understand what you want to try and achieve, and you know, we've talked about the student, the applicant being at the heart of all of that. So you look at what they need, and again, if you look at a typical student, they want speed. Not the drug, just the speed of offer letters and CASs. You know, that's what they want. So that speed of processing is a critical part of the process, because if you look at an international student, the amount of hoops and loops they have to jump through, the visa process, the accommodation process, everything is a process. So the smoother and the more efficient those processes can be, the better. And you know, I completely agree with Kris, your point around we can't be blind to just saying technology is the solution to everything. You know, particularly in the UK, a lot of colleagues here will be aware of universities' responsibilities as a sponsor. So we have a responsibility to UKVI, and you have sponsorship duties and obligations to meet. So you can't rely completely on automation to fulfill all of that. The more automated we can get definitely will help, but there has to be a degree of human interaction, and again, us taking some degree of responsibility, because at the moment not all the technology is there to do that.
Kris?
I agree with everything Bobby just said. I think a great starting point is looking at, well, what data do I currently have? What tools do I have available? What data can I access? Who do I have available to actually look at this data and do something with it? If you can then couple that, assuming you've got some data and some insights, with what are your known pain points, then that's your low-hanging fruit, and that's kind of where you can start. Because, again, Bobby bang on the money earlier to say, one of your biggest issues normally is getting new IT systems in, and as you subtly alluded to, plug and play is rarely plug and play. So the trick is to try and find the tech that truly is plug and play, and it may not even be something as sophisticated as breaking down a customer journey into 100 steps and sending out automated emails. It may be pain points within your team, because you have 6 different departments who all help in the process of recruiting a student and helping them through the process. So how are those teams communicating within your institution? If you have nothing at the moment beyond email, well, how about something like Slack, or a communication tool that can instantly allow you to communicate within the university? That is immediate plug and play, up and running in 5 minutes, and you can set up rules on how to use it in 10 minutes. So it's really about, what have we got, where are our pain points, and what's the simplest solution we can put in place to have an impact where there's a big problem at the moment.
And UK universities, particularly during the pandemic, showed how good they were at that, because they did exactly that. They looked, what have we got? How can we work in this new world? And all of a sudden they were doing it. We were recruiting international students in an online, digital first way. So it definitely is something that we're capable of doing. But sometimes it's that looking internally. So I was having a conversation back on campus yesterday with the director of IT, and I won't name the department that he was talking about, but he was saying in that department they had 10 different systems. And and in one of the systems it had all the modules that could do the work of all the other systems. So there's, just by looking internally first and having those discussions with the experts within the organization can be a big plus point. Yeah.
Kris?
To answer your question, where would you begin? I would advise universities that are looking to start this automation process to start with listening. Start again listening to the students you're seeking to educate. We're education marketers, but we're also educators. So what would you like to teach them when they are looking at your university? What questions do you get? What questions do you ask? So start with listening, and then build content that responds to those questions. So build your content, videos or web pages or emails, answering those questions. And a second piece of advice would be to build assets that can compound over time, so that every cycle you go through the same assets again, you can tweak them, you can measure the open rates of your emails, and make them better each cycle. So you don't have to start all over again each time, but start with talking to the students. So aside from all this automation that we have in place, there's an email address, studee@kvg.be. So if you want to reach me, just email that email address. I check it every 4 hours, and I answer every email there within 4 hours. Yeah? So I answer emails 4 times a day, using those snippets, text expanders, so standardized answers, but students get answers immediately. And if I don't have a snippet or a piece of content or a landing page about it, I'll brief my marketing team to build something for that. So next cycle around, or next time that question comes around, we have something to show them. And then we're educating the people we seek to serve, and we get better educated applicants, and hence a higher conversion rate.
So what does an admissions team do if they don't have the skills to implement technology currently in-house and they don't have the budget to recruit?
Right. it's really difficult, and a lot of UK universities will be in that same situation. So I think you've got to prioritize. You've got to look at you've got to understand the recruitment strategies that you've got in place, and then prioritize. And those prioritizations may be on different geographies. They may be based on different courses. You may have deadlines. You've got to find ways to actually manage the volume of things coming in, because if you don't have the resources and you don't have the technology, then it's a hard slog.
Thank you. Now, we've just got a few minutes, so has anybody got any questions that you'd like to put to our panel? Anybody?
Is there anything happening at the moment in terms of like automated conditional offer making, that kind of offer making part? Because you would think in principle, I had to make an appointment for my daughter online for a health appointment, and I could fill in different things, and then it just gave me the result.
It's like the COVID vaccine.
Yeah. So
Qualified for it.
is it not something where you're kind of writing in, here's my qualifications, and based on that, here's a conditional offer? Are people doing that? I don't know, there might be issues around that, but that would seem like an area for automation.
So, for example, IDP Connect. And IDP is an organisation. Yeah. They've got a product called Fastlane, and that Fastlane service is exactly that. So they've built in conditions into the machine, the computer, and if the student qualifies, they're put through, they match all the requirements, and they're given an offer in principle.
Offer in principle, yeah.
And I think, as I understand it, there's 20 to 30 UK universities on board with that already, and a number, if not most of Australian universities on board as well. So yeah, there are examples. That's just one. There's many examples of that, and I've seen the within CRM systems that possibility of automation. I've seen sort of red, green, amber lanes based on the quality of the application and how complete the application is. So if your application is complete, it comes in and goes in the green lane. If it's not complete, it's an amber. If it's really bad, and if it's an amber and red, there's automated communication that goes out telling the student this is missing, etc. So there's lots of things that I've seen.
Okay.
Thank you. We've got time for one more question.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Oh,
please.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I was like, massive supporter of all things innovation and technology driven. You've touched on it a couple of times, but I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts around how you may have had to have influenced and changed business culture, particularly when it comes to talking about using technology to drive business outcomes and business processes. I'd love to hear a bit about that, if any of you have some thoughts.
You want to take that? Kris, do you want to kick off?
It's a good question. I was fortunate enough to be given a carte blanche when building everything that was needed to recruit international students. So our university was well established locally. We had 60 programs in Dutch, and then we decided to launch programs in English as well. And I basically had carte blanche, I don't know how to say that in English, but I'm sure you get it, to get the numbers in the black in 3 years' time. And I was pretty much allowed to do whatever was necessary to get those numbers in. So we started working with agencies. That was unseen in Flanders. We were the first university to start working with agencies because I convinced the leadership that that was what needed to be done. Same thing with all the technologies that have been mentioned. Because we had to do with a very small team and get the numbers up real quickly. And now that the numbers are indeed growing exponentially, now we can expand on the team to work with these services. But it was more a result-driven approach.
So what I would say is when you're trying to bring in new technology, the biggest issue is the people. And what people don't like is change. Right? So what they will do is they will see this fantastic new piece of technology and they'll say, okay, can it do what I currently do? and that's where they want to leave it.
Yeah.
That's the wrong question. The question is, what can it do? So if you're ever involved with process change or bringing in technology to take over from processing or to improve that, you've got to be focused on what can this technology do? How can that be? What can that do to enable us to do things better? Where you are now is probably the old way of doing it, the ancient way of doing it, and that's not going to be the answer. So and the person who is actually project managing should be somebody that understands the system. So one of the classic things I've seen universities do, they buy this £1 million system, and then they say, right, now where can we cut costs? Right, we'll cut costs on the experts to actually implement the system, and we'll use our current users to build the system in. That's a mistake. Use the expertise who understand the system and what the benefits that system can bring into your institution and to whatever change you're looking to make. That's the key. If you miss that, you're still stuck where you were. You've almost bespoked a really good system to match the processes you used to do. And that's a classic UK university thing that we tend to do. So yeah, it's bringing the experts, look at what the technology can actually do, and understanding what you want to achieve and matching those two. Don't look at what you currently do. That's not important.
And I think just to add to what Bobby said, I think it's really important to maintain a culture of feedback and collaborative effort in terms, because there's a lot of data going on, and you could have 3-4 departments, but if you're not communicating, it's really easy to lose the internal communication, and then it's amazing how slow the processes get. So technology needs to be implemented, but we need to continue talking in between departments. That's key.
Thank you very much. That's unfortunately all we have time for today, so can we give our panel a big round of applause? Just want to hand over to Kris, our CEO, to say a couple words.
Oh yeah, just for 30 seconds. I just wanted to kind of very quickly give you an overview of how we've used automation. It's literally going to be a minute. We've just spent 2 years developing new technology at Studee. So whilst we've been supporting students in a more traditional manner, we've been developing some very, very sophisticated technology. So some of the things we're doing is automating the process of trying to find the most relevant programs at university for students through effectively a matching process. We then have technology that will duplicate a university's application form, so we're asking exactly the right questions, but we're able to manage the process. That allows us to take all the information from the student, and we do an 85-point check, which ensures that that the correct documents are being submitted, everything is as the university would like, and that we're not going to be submitting any students who wouldn't meet the criteria of the university. And then the icing on the cake is we've broken down the student journey after submission into 120 steps, and our system will automatically work out where the student needs to go depending on which university and what that university has asked the student to do. So we know that you all got your own ways of doing things, but our system will handle that, and it provides a secondary to support to what you're doing. So the second cherry on the cake, it's a beautiful cake, is that we allow universities to maintain direct communication with the student. So we give you the student a unique email address so you can have your direct comms, and our tech will ensure that the communication goes between you and the student as per a normal email, but we get copied in. That means if they get stuck or got any questions, we know exactly what's happened, and on top of that, our system will summarise all the information you've given them in a nice condensed format. So just wanted to give a shout out to ourselves and our 2 years of hard work. And to celebrate that, we've got a few glasses of bubbly in the corner. So if you'd like to join us over the next half an hour, we'd be delighted to see you. So thanks for joining us today.